Hi, Chase Yerg with the Equita Group, Equita Final Expense Services, here with my partner in crime, Cole McCoy.
What's up?
And we're bringing you episode number 36 of In the Trenches. We're excited. Last week we talked about how, if you're out there right now looking for a home, important key questions that you should know to ask that agency that you're looking at potentially joining. We're going to completely shift focus now today on episode 36 to something that may sound mundane. It may sound a little simple to you, but we need to be able to master the mundane items, the simple items, the basic items to really get to that great level. So we're going to talk today about how to effectively approach a door and door knock. What do you say at the door? How do you get in the door? The do's and the don'ts. And so, Cole McCoy, I've been with you. I know that you can effectively knock on a door. Let's talk about and just kind of kick it off with, there's a special mindset that comes from someone, and that person has to have to be able to go out and knock on doors. I know you, from a recruiting perspective, you talk to a lot of people that come from other markets, and when we talk about part of being successful, you have to door knock, they kind of turn their nose up at it a little bit. What is that mindset that you got to have to be an efficient door knocker?
Man, so door knocking is something, Chase, that is probably the least sexy item to talk about when we're talking about the final expense industry and how this stuff works, and trying to get somebody maybe who's used to doing mortgage protection, or they write a lot of annuities, or they do Medicare, which is obviously door knocking for Medicare is a no-no. So all these different markets, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road for some people that, they may not be willing to door knock. And if that's you, that's okay. Well, this isn't the right market for you. No big deal. But, this is something that as you're figuring out the final expense arena, whether you appointment set or not, you're going to have to figure out how to knock on that door. And that first impression that you're giving somebody is so important. So whether you already have an appointment, I know that I thrive off of having appointments, but you have to have a well-rounded approach, I sincerely believe, to do this business well, because you're always going to have people that don't answer the phone. You're always going to have folks that tell you to pound sand over the phone. You're still beating those people up at the door. Not beating them up like fighting them, but you're knocking on their door and you're getting in front of them, because it's a lot harder for them to say no to your face than it is over the phone. And it's the people that are willing to embrace that grind that make a lot of sales. But also there are folks that are willing to embrace that grind that maybe are just falling into some traps, or need a little bit of help as far as the fluidity of what they're saying and how they're overcoming things and all that type of stuff. So I just wanted to break it down, Chase, today, just to make sure that, we're giving the simple content too, because we can talk high level replacement and, how to ask the right questions when you're going to an organization, all this stuff. But we also want to give just that street level content of, man, how do I properly approach door knocking and what does this look like? So I'm excited, probably more excited to do this than I have a lot of other things, because this is something that we all deal with. Nobody really loves the idea of door knocking. It's that typical vacuum salesman roaming your block is kind of how we're looked at. So, man, I would love to just step in here, and I think we're going to have some fun with this one.
It's going to be a good one. And like I said, it may sound mundane. Like when you look at the description, there may be some people that don't click on this particular episode because, it's door knocking, I know how to door knock. There is an art to door knocking. And we have so many success stories. I think about Roger Chan, just because I remember seeing him first come to us from another organization, and he made the decision that I'm going to commit to door knocking. And as he told us on the podcast we did with him a few episodes ago, Roger didn't do anything but door knocking. He wrote over $200,000 his first full year with us. And then last year, almost 300. And just the number continues to grow. And he started to incorporate appointment setting. This can be a great foundation for you. So let's get into that mindset that you have to have, what you have to really bring to the table daily, because you use the word that describes it. It's a grind. There's going to be a lot of sales that get lost if you literally just hang on to the phone. So let's talk about you particularly. We're going to get your perspective as a pro at door knocking. What is your mindset day to day when you get in that car? We're going to talk about your setup, what supplies, what do you take with you in a minute. But what is your mindset when you buckle that seatbelt and you fire that car up? What are you thinking at that point as you go along to have a good day?
Man, when I'm door knocking, Chase, this is something I've probably wrestled with my entire career. As I go out with an AP goal, I want to hit X amount of production, and what I realized is I can't fall into that trap, because when you're door knocking, you're not guaranteed to get everybody at home, and you just never know. So what I've learned to do is set an activity goal, and really it's just two really main things when I'm door knocking. Is one is to embrace the grind. You don't know what you're going to get in front of. You don't know if they're going to be at work, or the wife's not home, or they're not even going to answer the door and you have to leave a notice or whatever. But also keep it extremely simple. Don't overthink it. You don't need to have every single little thing prepared. Take your leads and go get in front of people. So if you have those two mindsets, one, embrace the grind, and two, keep it simple, everything else can kind of work from there. I can give you some tips and tricks on little things to do and say. But at the end of the day, when you're door knocking, you're gonna have people that are gonna be a definite yes, come on in. You're gonna have people that no matter what you say, they're gonna be a no. It's really getting in front of those people that makes the difference. But it's the training that's gonna maybe the people in the gray area, the training that we're gonna go over, that to get in front of those people, maybe 20 or to 30% of your leads. The rest of them, it's just a matter of getting in front of them and getting that rep, and they're either going to be a yes or they're going to be a no. So that's my mindset when I'm going and getting in front of these people. I could be having an off day, but getting in front of the right person. And Ben Bowman uses a fishing analogy all the time. I could be using the wrong bait, but just getting in front of the right situation and catch a fish. And I look at it that way. You just got to get in front of people. Beyond that, we can give training and help you along in the process. But if you're willing to step in front of these doors and knock on them and get in front of somebody, usually it's going to work out in your favor.
And you got to also understand in terms of door knocking that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And, just because you go out there and you're out there for 6 hours and you don't get anything, it doesn't mean the leads are bad. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It means that next day we're going to get back on the horse, because how many times, and I know you can testify to this as well as anybody, you get absolutely annihilated the day you go out today, and then tomorrow you go back out, you do it all over again, and you kill it. Or you go 3 or 4 days in a row with nothing, and you kill it on that last day. Same thing with, if you look at it just bite-sized once a day. If you turn around and go home too early because you think you're getting beat up and you're just not going to make sales, how many times have we heard that last knock, that last door was the one that changed the week, changed the day?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it takes. Again, it's setting activity goals, knowing that if you've done this long enough, if you have the right activity, the numbers will always level out. If you're closing 80% of your leads, it's probably going to level back out down to 25 or 30%. If you're 0 for 20, you're probably going to hit a hot streak. It's just keeping the proper mindset and going and getting in front of these people, and just being a slave to your activity, if anything else.
Good stuff. Well, let's go to one of the big questions I know you get, I get, and I know Ben has answered this one a ton, is, man, what do you take to the door? Like, what do you have? Do you have a briefcase? We got the old school guys that have a briefcase. They've got all kinds of stuff that they take to a door. Then we've got some that, they don't take much of anything. I know you're more of a minimalist in terms of what you take to the door. Typically, it's the lead, it's your iPad. Let's talk about your approach to what do you take to the door, and why do you take as much or less as you do to the door? What's the mental approach to that?
Yeah, I keep it very simple. I put all my leads on my iPad using an app called Notability. And so I literally take my iPad only to the door, and I might have delivery notices and a pen in my pocket. But all I have is that iPad. And I'll go back and forth. Some people like to take a bag with all their applications in them. Some people leave the car running and go and get their stuff. Honestly, if you're confident, do it. But personally, I like to keep it very minimal. I can do everything from my iPad, but also, I've found a lot of people's perception of a salesman is that guy that has that big bulky bag. And so for me, I'm more confident when I just have that iPad in my hands. I'm not saying you can't sell with a big bag and all your supplies in it. That's fine. It's really a confidence factor. Whatever you feel good about, do it. But personally, I have an iPad with the lead on it, and I'm just showing it to them like I hold it in my hand. Seriously, that's all I do.
There's a lot of people out there nowadays where they've shifted how they did things before. And I'm going to say this: those that have been in the game for a while, that maybe even say 10 years ago, 10, 13 years ago, I remember the briefcase was very prevalent. With technology nowadays, I personally, this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying anybody out there is wrong if they do it differently, but there's really no need, in my opinion, for me to walk up with folders, briefcase, all that stuff when my iPad can have everything in there that I needed if I'm using the right technology and I'm organized. It's a neat thing, and I love the fact that you put your leads in Notability as well, where you can literally just walk up and just show them that lead right there. So if you're somebody out there right now and you're not familiar with it, drop us a comment, reach out. We'd love to kind of help you get that set up because it is a game changer. To not have your passenger seat or your trunk just full of all kinds of craziness, you're able to utilize technology with a tablet or an iPad of some sort and put it all in there. It's really, really neat. I picked that up from you, and I love that. What else are we in terms of our supplies? You keep it, like I said, you're pretty minimal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I keep brochures and folders in my car. Like if I make a sale, I'm going to give them that company's folder and a brochure, and so they have the information to the company and any forms I'm supposed to leave behind, I do, but I just don't take it to the door.
Yeah, so you've got all of that in your car. So you got a little bit of a supply closet in your car, but
Mm-hmm.
most of what you use is going to be digital. It's going to be an image on your iPad.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Okay, so let's transition over to the actual approach. Before we get to the approach, actually, we're going to talk about some of the don'ts. I know most of the time you're going to talk about how you do it, and then we'll talk about what not to do. We want to start off with what not to do if you're going to be out door knocking. Let's start there. What are the don'ts when it comes to going out and knocking on a door?
Yeah, well, first thing first, I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but what prompted this training is, I've been with a lot of agents over the last month, either listening to their recordings or seeing them in action. And what I've noticed is there's a lot of yes/no questions that we ask in the beginning when we're door knocking, figuring this out. And we have to learn to be assumptive. And so avoiding things like, Miss Mary, did you fill this card out? Or do you have a couple minutes to go over this? If you're asking a yes/no question, just assume the answer is always going to be no. The only yes/no question that I ask is, should I take my shoes off? And so, because even if they're saying no to that question, they're saying yes. So really, all the don'ts that I might have is within that umbrella of yes/no questions. Just don't ask them. Say, look, we'll go over the pitch in a minute and how we approach that, but don't ask, did they fill this card out? Because you're going to spend a long time. I don't know. I'm not going to say hours, but you're going to spend a long time just overcoming that, because the common objection you're going to get is, I don't remember this, or I didn't fill this out, or that's not my handwriting. I don't even get into that. And in fact, if they say they didn't fill it out, I'm still overcoming that and getting into their house anyway, a lot of times, just by being assumptive and stepping into that situation.
That's huge. That's important information that anybody can take away. I promise you want to take notes on this, because I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly when I was out with Cole. Even though I had been in the business for some time, I saw Cole do some really, really neat things. I'm going to give you guys one thing that I noticed with Cole as we're talking about don'ts. I don't know if this goes along with what you're saying, but I'm going to throw it out there. The one thing I noticed with Cole was that he did not become disgruntled, disrespectful, or rude to anybody that he met with, even if they were rude to him at the door. He was an absolute sweetheart to each and every person, and that's one thing I'll throw out there to you guys that goes along with what Cole's talking about in terms of the don'ts. Don't disrespect somebody at the door. There's some crazy people all over, but we got to love them. And I know that that was one big thing I took away from my ride along with you, was that you loved on everybody, man. You were straight up with all of them.
Yeah, you can be straight up and blunt with somebody and still be kind.
Yes.
At the end of the day, these are human beings and they have a heart. Maybe they've had a bad day that we don't understand. Like you definitely want to be empathetic and kind, but you're also there to do a job. And that's, so in your approach, it's very business-like. I like to say be kind, but with a sense of urgency.
Got it. Any other, as we move along in terms of the topic being still some of the don'ts, anything else we want to throw out there to kind of steer clear, watch out, some pitfalls and perils in terms of the don'ts?
Yeah. I mean, the other big obstacle that I run into is, I guess it's more of a do, is rep what you're going to say a million times before you go do it in front of somebody, because you want them to feel like you've said this and you've practiced this and you've gone over this, and that it's just part of your job. You don't want it to feel like it's rehearsed, like you're super nervous and you're not saying the right things, because they're immediately going to pick up on that. Like, oh, this guy's trying to sell me something. He's got to say something a certain way. Be yourself. Figure out how to take what you're saying and make it you. And at the end of the day, that comes from repping it over and over and over and over and over again. And, practice on your wife, practice on your kids, practice to your upline. If you have someone that is willing to take your recordings and critique them and listen to them and spend time on the phone or in person role playing the stuff with you. When I first got into the business, I had to learn a 7-page script. And it was, with proper punctuations, and I pause here and I don't pause here, and I say this, and I had to get it right to be able to go and sell in the field. We're independent agents. We don't have to do this, but that experience was helpful for me because, what I learned to do is you're essentially becoming an actor or an actress where you have lines that you have to say, and you want to become so familiar with them that they become a part of you. And even when I'm having conversations with my wife, there are common phrases that I've learned in the business that just come out sometimes when I kind of go in autopilot mode. How sometimes we have selective hearing, maybe there's a ball game on, or maybe I'm responding to a text, and my wife will be in the other room and ask me a question. I'll respond with something, and she just knows, and she'll laugh. She'll laugh at me because she knows it's a response. But it's really, you need to rep this so many times that it just becomes a natural flow and it becomes yours.
That's good, man. I love it. That's something that can't be talked about enough. The experience, the doing it over and over and over and over, that's one of the keys here. So before we get to the next part, we're going to go through the actual pitch, the actual presentation at the door, what you're saying. One other thing I wanted to mention to you and kind of get your thoughts on, when we talked about mindset, we talked about the supply. I want to talk about routine. You mentioned Road Warrior a moment ago. Do you have any particular routines that you're doing prior to? Here's an example. Here's why I'm asking. Do you organize your leads all in Notability a certain way? I know that Road Warrior has the organizer. It'll show you route planner. Are you making a note after you visit with somebody to where you're organizing them a certain way, or is it just, I'm just going to keep going based off of where I'm at, the location?
I'd like to say I put them in order. I don't do it all the time. Ideally, what I'll do is I'll put them all in the Notability and just go one after the other, put them in Road Warrior, which is just a software you can pay, $5 or $6 a month for, and you put all your leads in and it'll optimize your route. So you're going from place to place in a very efficient fashion. So what I do is I'll just put them all in there and I'll know where my first stop is going to be. And what I'll do is I'll GPS that. How far away am I? Because I work 2-3 hours from the house. So I got to manage my time and know when I need to get out of the house in the morning. So that's as far as I go. Sometimes I'll put them in order, boom, 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 boom. But it's usually pretty easy to scroll through and just find the lead and have it ready to go. I don't overthink it. Really, I just get the route and I go. So Notability is, yeah.
I had to ask because I know some of the guys that are doing this, they've probably got paper clipped together. They're probably sorting through them. Is there a more efficient way? Pretty much it is what it is. You've got them routed out.
Keep it extremely simple.
Good. Well, let's get to the main event. Talking about what you say at the door as you approach the door. We're going to talk about some objections, some rebuttals, common objections, rebuttals. You and I made a little role play here. Let's talk about from the moment you get out of the car, what you have with you. We've already talked about. We know what supplies you've got. Kind of walk us through play by play as you get out of the car. What happens to the moment you approach that door and knock on it?
Yep. So when I pull up, I'm trying to get out of the car as quickly as possible. I don't want to sit in the driveway a while because it'll freak somebody out. I actually usually try to park on the road if it's available, just in case they feel threatened. You don't want to park and block them in. You want to park on the road. I walk up to the house. I pull in and I'm out of the car in 5 seconds. Typically, what I like to do is have the lead pulled up on my iPad before I pull up. So if I don't have it organized, I'll stop a block up, get my iPad situated. So when I get there, I'm ready to get out of the car and get going. I go up to the door with just my iPad in my hand. And if there's a window open or anything, or I think they're home, I'll wave. I'll just give them a wave to make them think like this guy must think he knows us or something. So they're more likely to come to the door. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take my iPad. Let me see if I don't think I have my iPad with me, but I'll take my iPad and I'll tuck it under my arm. So it's just me and I have both my hands. I don't look like any salesman they've ever seen. I'm just stopping by. And then when I get there, I can just flip open my iPad page and then I have it pulled up. In fact, let me get my iPad. I should have had this ready. We're talking about being prepared. But so what I'll do is I'll have my iPad just like this. This is what it is. I have it tucked under my arm. I knock on the door, they answer, and I just go through it. I have my iPad pulled up. It's dead right now, but I'll flip it open, and I'll just kind of have it right there in their face real quick, and I'll flash it to them so they can see something in their handwriting. But I'm not letting them grab my iPad. I'm not letting them take my iPad. It's just I want them to see, hey, I got this card you filled out. And it's very, very simple. My door approach is maybe 3 sentences. So it's knock, 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 knock. Hi, Miss Mary. My name is Cole, and I'm smiling. I'm kind. My name is Cole. I'm a state-regulated benefits coordinator here in Jackson County. I got this card you sent back in the mail in regards to the life insurance, or I'll say final expense. If you're getting beat up, you can switch that up. I don't care. But I got this card you sent back in the mail about the state-regulated final expense program. I just need to go over this with you real quick. It should only take a couple minutes. Do I need to kick my shoes off? It's that simple. And so when you're stepping into that situation, I'm not getting into what it is or isn't at the door. I'm just trying to get in.
That's beautiful because it's simple, it's effective. I've seen you do it many times, and it's very, very effective. Let's talk about there's some people out there right now listening to this, and we've worked with them, we've trained some of them, that they just don't feel comfortable. Man, Cole, you made it sound so easy. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no book you can read, there's no video you can watch. Go do it, experience it, and you'll start to develop that level of comfort. It comes with experience. But with you've been doing this a long time. Let's talk about some words of wisdom for those that are going to get that, whoa, hey, who are you? You're going to get that little bit of resistance occasionally. How do you overcome that?
Well, it's about being kind. You kind of notice that especially if I'm talking to a lady, my voice is a little bit higher. I try not to talk too fast, although you can at times. Just try and slow down. And I don't like to be right in their face too. If there's steps, I like to put 1 foot up on the one step and then I'm down on the ground. So I try to be below them because I'm a big guy. I don't want to overpower somebody. So I try to step back to have that conversation with them. And whatever they say, my rebuttal is almost always exactly the same. But, if they say something like, whoa, who are you again? Well, my name is Cole McCoy. I'm a state-regulated benefits coordinator here in Jackson County. I got this card that you filled out about the state-regulated final expense program. I'm just supposed to go over this with you real quick, sweetie. If I can't help you, I'm going to get out of your hair, but it just takes a couple minutes. Do I need to kick my shoes off? And I'll basically go over it just like that again. Like, wait, what card are you talking about? What's that card that you filled out? We had sent it to you in the mail, and you had read it, and you filled it out, and you actually went and put it in the mailbox. You said that you're 64 years young. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. Now I have the right address. I know we tried to call, but nobody answered. You probably didn't recognize my number. That's okay. What I do is I help folks who are on a fixed income, and we just want to make sure that you're getting all your final expenses taken care of. Again, if I'm not able to help you, I'm out of your hair. It just takes a few minutes. Should I kick my shoes off? And I'll do that 2 or 3 times. And if they're still standoffish, I'll say, look, we don't have to do it right this second, but I am supposed to go over this with you since you filled this request out. It's only going to take a couple minutes. If you don't want to do it right this second, I will be back in town tomorrow. Is morning or afternoon better? Then I'm just going to set the appointment. I don't like doing that because a lot of times, whatever time they tell you, they're making a mental note to not be there at that time. If you notice you're getting no-showed a lot, that's probably why. You want to try and get that appointment right then and there when you're talking to them, because you probably caught them off guard. So that's why you need to be patient and understanding and take a step back and be kind, but still say, look, I always love to use this line. If I can't help you, I'll get right out of your hair. It only takes a few minutes. And from there, once they kind of get that sense, like you're not trying to camp out all day. And a lot of times I'll scroll through and I'll say, look, I have about 40 of these I have to get to today. Again, I can't take up much of your time, but since you filled this out, I do need to go over this with you. And keep it simple. I'm not asking them their permission. I'm telling them I have to go over this. I just need to figure out when we can do this.
One thing that I've noticed with you is you do say a phrase, you requested this information, you filled this out, but you do it in a very non-confrontational way. I think, and I've seen it before, where some will come across if they get a little bit of resistance in the beginning because they don't know you. Think about your mother or your grandmother answering the door. They don't know you. And some big boy, you or I, show up. I mean, I'm okay if my mother or my grandmother is skeptical about one of us showing up. We don't even know them. So what you want to do is you want to earn that trust a little bit. Like you do a great job at it because you're so nice. You're smiling. You're very non-threatening. I love the point that you made where you step back. You're not towering over them. I've seen you do that many a times, and that's a great point to take. Another thing is don't be confrontational. If they're giving you some feedback, maybe some objections that are kind of signs that they don't trust you, don't become confrontational. Like, well, you filled this out. Well, you asked for this information. Don't do that. Become, like you said, be that person that's like, look, I'm here to make sure that you have this information, that you get taken care of, that you get qualified. You're always nice, and it puts them at ease a lot of times where they trust you a little bit more, as they should, because you're a big teddy bear. You're not coming to hurt anybody like they see on the news and stuff like that. You're trying to help somebody. I always found that with you, and I know a lot of our other top producers, they're very nice, they're polite, they're courteous. They're not confrontational, looking to battle and say, well, you did this and you requested that. That doesn't get you anywhere a lot of times.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, like, kind but urgent is what I can preach. If you're confident, you're going to always have the right thing to say, because once you kind of get that information out there, it really just becomes a little bit of a back and forth. And honestly, there are some people that they'll just say, come in without even knowing who you are. Come in. That's just how it is, especially down in the South. So there's no perfect situation that's going to be the exact same way every time. There's no one situation that's 100% the same. But if you're prepared to, that if you've repped this thousands of times, there's really nothing that's going to shock you. And you always have the right thing to say next to get in there. And sometimes it's, you want to determine if they're pushing you off 3, 4, 5 times, it may be they either are a time waster, which hopefully you can figure that out, or it's a legitimate excuse and you don't want to push them too hard because they'll just, if they buy something from you, they're just going to cancel as soon as you leave anyway.
So you just brought up something that I was going to touch on regarding objections. The ability to potentially notice a situation and walk. Do you mind providing a couple examples, not to put you on the spot, but that's what we do here. When you see somebody, you're at the door, you're talking to them, no, the VA is going to pay for this. No, when you get those objections at the door, do you mind give us a couple examples that are common for you that you get and how you handle those?
Well, the main one that I see a lot is, I already have that taken care of. And typically how I respond to that, I actually want to hear that, because a lot of times it's, some of the extremely expensive companies that I won't throw under the bus right now, but, they do this all over the country. And you want them to have those types of policies because you know that they're buyers, but you can put them in a much better situation. So they'll say, well, I already got all this taken care of. My response to that is typically something like this: great. You actually have to have something in place to qualify for many of the programs available. Again, if I'm not able to help you, I'll get out of your hair. But since you filled this card out, Miss Mary, I do need to go over this with you real quick. It should only take a couple minutes to get you this information. Do I need to take my shoes off? And you're overcoming it and getting past it to get the appointment. So that's a common one. Somebody says, oh, the VA takes care of this. Really, the biggest time wasters are the ones, well, my daughter pays for this for me. Okay, that might be one where you could take a shot at it. Well, we needed to set up something where we can get your daughter here. And their response to that will kind of determine. And honestly, even if I think they might be a time waster at the door, I'm still trying to get an appointment with them or get to sit down with them. Because if I take an extra 2 minutes and ask them a couple follow-up questions, that can determine really if they're a time waster or not. But those are typically what you're going to hear. You actually want people to say they already have it taken care of, because you know that they're buyers. You just have to learn how to wade through those waters, which we've gone over in previous episodes on how to use different techniques like reduce paid up and things. So
I find, and I may be wrong, but I find, me personally, like whenever things are at the dire, the code red, the end of the road, in terms of you've worked through all these leads, it's the end of the day, it's the end of the week. What you'll do in a dire situation will kind of show you, what you're made of, and what I mean by that is you're gonna develop some creativity. You can go through, if you have 40 new leads, 30 new leads, and just in a very monotonous way, just kind of and just work through them and go through the motions. But if you've got X amount of doors left to knock on, and you've been beat up all day with the same objection, the same rebuttal, you're going to get creative. And with what you just touched on, I want to throw out there, and we give credit to Bill Miller on this. I remember Bill telling me this. When he would knock on a door, and a lady told him, after he'd been getting beat up all day long, nobody home, no sales, what presentations he was able to make, just limited activity, but he was busy. He was keeping his activity level high. Conversions were low. I remember him telling me towards the end of the day, the lady was like, look, I need to talk to my daughter. And he said she was an absolute sweetheart of a lady. And they kind of developed in a very short amount of time some kind of friendly rapport. And he felt like he could kind of joke with her a little bit. And so he's kind of not throwing a Hail Mary, but he's kind of at the end of the day, and he's like, look, you're 72 years young. You've made it this whole time. You've lived a great life. And you have to ask your children if it's okay to go over the information that you had requested. What would they do? And he kind of goes into that conversation with her, and he's starting to lead down that path of, you are a grown woman. What do you need? He's getting rid of that smoke screen, as Ben calls it. Getting rid of that smoke screen if I got to check with my children. Check with my children is a nice way of saying goodbye, and I don't want to talk to you again. So he kind of just threw his Hail Mary, I guess you could say, and was like, hey, look, you've made it this far through life and done a great job. You're in great shape, 72 years now without having to ask for their approval. In fact, you raised them. Let's just sit down for a couple of minutes and make sure you get qualified and go over this information. And I always thought that was kind of cool. I give kudos to Bill Miller. Bill, if you see this video, I always thought that was kind of cool. Anything else we want to touch on when it comes to approach and those objections, those rebuttals, because it seems like we may have left some of it out. What do you think?
Yeah, so we already went over the I've already got this taken care of objection. And by the way, we're going to post up. So what I did is I just kind of created a little script. It's 3 or 4 sentences that I personally use word for word pretty much every time I get in front of somebody, plus the rebuttals that you may want to use or consider with like maybe 3 of the main objections, which you're going to get about 90 to 95% of the time. But I've already got this taken care of as common. The other thing is I didn't fill a card out. And this is where a lot of agents fall into that trap with either a time waster or they just stay on something that you need to move past to get into a selling conversation. And so when somebody says, I didn't fill this card out, or I don't remember this or whatever, I'm trying to get past it as soon as possible. So I'll say, well, man, a lot of people say that they don't remember this, but I do have this information here. Someone must have thought really highly of you. I do just need to go over this with you real quick. If I'm not able to help you, I'll get right out of your hair. It just takes a couple minutes. Should I kick my shoes off? So you're always, the 3 major things you want to say is if I can't help you, I'm going to get out of your hair. It only takes a few minutes. Should I kick my shoes off? If you end whatever you say with those 3 things, you could really have a horrible rebuttal, but finish with those items and you'll probably get in the door if there's someone that's going to let you in. Some people just won't, and that's okay. Those people responding keep our quality of agents high, because there are some people that will look at that as an excuse to get out of the business. So, I honestly like having those people because it keeps me strong. I don't overlook those. I mean, I overlook those and just get to the next person, where some people might get hung up on that. These leads are crap or whatever. Well, that's less competition for me, I guess. So I actually like having those people in every batch. But so that's one person that, well, I didn't fill that card out. And the other thing is, you'll hear someone say, well, I'm not interested anymore. That's one where if you can get that one figured out, oh my gosh. Some of those people just really, it's a smoke screen for, I don't think I can afford this. And so if someone says that I'm not interested, I blow right past that. They'll say, I'm not interested, or I changed my mind. Well, no worries, Miss Mary. Since you filled this card out, I am supposed to get you this information. If I'm not able to help you, I'm out of your hair. I don't want to have to keep bugging you. We are just supposed to follow up on these. It just takes a couple minutes. And again, if I can't help you, I'm getting right on down the road. I got 40 of these I got to take care of. Should I kick my shoes off? I'll get this done for you real quick. And a lot of times what they're thinking is, I can't afford this. And so you also say, look, Miss Mary, I'm not collecting any money today, because the reality is you're not. You're setting up a bank draft for down the road. And they may already have something in place, and that's just a smoke screen. They're like, crap, I didn't realize sending this thing back was going to get somebody knocking on my door. So those are things that maybe to keep in mind when you get that objection, that they're thinking that you might need to overcome. Say something simple like, Miss Mary, I'm not collecting any money today.
That's one that I actually enjoy. Is I'm not here to collect any money. I'm just here to get you qualified, make sure you get the information that you receive. That's it. In summary, Cole, we've gone over some really good information. For those of you out there, if you're coming from another market, and let's say your mortgage protection or your Medicare, if you're not familiar with having to go out and incorporate door knocking into what you do, I urge you, go back, rewind, listen to this a few times. You're going to pick up some really good nuggets. But as Cole mentioned, the mindset. What's the word, Cole? Starts with a G. You said you got to be a what?
Grinder.
You got to be willing to grind. If you're going to be going out, and you're going to be successful. I'm not going to say if you're going to go out and door knock. If you're going to be successful in this business, you have to have door knocking at some point throughout your week implemented into your business. So you got to have a mindset of somebody who's willing to grind. Understand that you're going to get beat up. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of no shows. A lot of people not home. You're going to see the blinds move and they don't answer the door. On to the next one. Come back around, catch them at a better time. And then the supplies. Cole, you keep it simple. As you said, you don't go in with 37 million different things. You may have a stack of delivery notices. You've got everything you need for the most part, outside of a couple of brochures or something in your iPad. The lead is there and he's showing it to them on the iPad. And then his approach. If you take anything away from this call, this podcast, I urge you go back and highlight that part just a moment ago where we were talking about how Cole pitches and approaches the door. And then also the overcoming of his objections and rebuttals that he gets on a daily basis. That right there is gold. And what's going to happen is when you go out and you start door knocking, you're going to be, that's exactly what Cole talked about. He mentioned it. What am I missed, Cole? Why do we want to close this bad boy out?
Let's give him an example, man. Why don't I door knock you and you be that difficult old lady? And let's give something like kind of give you an interaction of what this might look like.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Mary.
Yeah, who are you?
Hey, Mary, my name is Cole. I'm a state regulated benefits coordinator here in Jackson County. I got this little postcard you sent back in the mail about the state regulated final expense program. I'm just supposed to go over this with you real quick. Should only take a couple minutes. Do I need to kick my shoes off, sweetie?
Wait, who are you with?
So my name is Cole. I'm a state regulated benefits coordinator here in Jackson County. I got this little postcard. You had read it and you filled it out. You said you're 64 years young, but you actually put this back in the mailbox to request this information. I'm just supposed to go over this with you real quick, sweetie. It should only take a couple minutes. Do I need to kick my shoes off?
I already have this taken care of.
You do? Awesome. Well, you're going to make my job so much easier today, sweetie. You actually have to have something in place to qualify for a lot of these programs. And if I can't help you, I'm going to get right out of your hair. This should only take a few minutes. Should I kick my shoes off?
No, come on in.
All right, sweetie.
I'm kind of excited you called me sweetie. For all of our listeners out there, that's on camera, and we'll always have that.
You like it. You like it.
Well, we appreciate each and every one of you guys joining us today. We're right at that 30-minute mark. Cole, killer as always, man. Appreciate you and look forward to doing this next episode here next week.
All right, man. We'll see you.
All right, guys. We don't know what your topic's going to be for next week. We don't ever hint that. But I can promise you we're going to bring the pain. We're going to bring the heat next week. We hope you guys have a fantastic Christmas. with your friends, your family. Great holiday season. And we'll be back at it again next week with a recording for you guys.